to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could I please have the roll call?
Jason Tron.
Here.
Julie Simpson.
Here.
Jeff Bard. Robin Cleek.
Here.
Wes Poland. Here. Matt Jacobs.
Here.
Sonali Patel.
Here. 6 present, 1 absent. Anybody wishes to make a public comment? Oh. We have no presentations, recognitions. The first item for discussion is the finance budget, the final budget presentation for the 2017-18 school year.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Most of what I'll present is basically a repeat from previous slides. This is the meeting where we're going to approve the budget. So in summary, we are here, September 11th, budget adoption. It is due at the tax extension office by the 29th. So that's why we're going to attempt to recommend that we approve the budget tonight. We're also going to, there's another action item to approve the 2018-19 budget calendar year as well, and to authorize Mr. Nick Brown to basically delegate me to begin working on the budget. And so that's for tonight. The budget calendar is very similar to the previous budget calendar. With the exception of the Financial Advisory Task Force, it's going to be determined that date, and when that date is determined, I'll amend the schedule and include that. So in summary, revenue, majority of it's local, 2.1% is the new CPI for 2017. It's a positive sign, it's the highest in 5 years. State funding, after everything, it's flat. There isn't really much of an impact with all of the changes with evidence-based funding. And that we are planning to receive both MCAT payments from last year and 2 from this year, so 4 payments total. And federal funding is up with title grants to $300,000, expense by fund. The majority of it is the educational fund, and the next highest is debt services, which we're paying down, and then O&M at 6.7%. We are increasing curricular needs as far as expenses. We added Dell Chromebooks to our leases. Instructional spending's up 5.5%. Salaries and benefits, as well as increases due to additional positions. A slight decrease in instructional support by about 3%. We're spending down the IMRF fund, which is shifted to the Ed Fund until that fund balance is at its appropriate level. The big item is the new kindergarten facility project, $12 million will be spent out of debt services from working cash. In summary, overall deficit spending for this year of $12.6 million, the kindergarten project, as well as summer capital project work that's being completed this summer. Our June fund balances will go from $40.2 million in 2017 to June of 2018. If the entire project were done, completed, and expensed, it would be $27.6 million. Overall operating revenues of $51.9 million, so that's the educational fund, O&M, and transportation. Expenses of $51.87 million, leaving a surplus of $92,000. Any questions related to the budget? It's been a long year, a long process.
Did any of the numbers change from last time? Because we thought that we didn't have a surplus last. We were from the overall budget. So the surplus
In the operating budget,
yeah.
that's what was
If
indicated.
we take
at the
out the
last
kindergarten, I thought we were like at 500,000 in deficit, something like that, roughly. To that.
Summer, yeah, the summer capital project work.
So that's where the majority of the deficit is in the summer projects. So
Well,
we had
it's
a
the-
question last meeting to come back for for you and or Nick to come back with some, I think Jeff had the question as to where some of these big expenses were that had a large change from last year.
Did you receive my memo last week? I reviewed that. Basically, in essence, it's,
Don't recall.
it was the second
be
bullet
me.
point in the memo.
Okay.
So the big thing is a kindergarten facility at 12 million,
Yep.
and then also the capital summer project work. The two combined, plus bringing the capital fund from a negative balance to a positive balance.
On one of those,
It's in the board packet, Jason.
Board packet was.
No, it wasn't in an email. It was in the board packet. Came on the board packet thing.
you had the number 12.6 for the spending from kindergarten center plus the $500,000 in capital projects. Where's the other 100,000?
The 100,000, the capital project fund is ending in it with a negative balance due to summer project
Right.
work from just a previous negative balance. It was a negative balance prior to that, the year prior as well.
Oh,
So the intent
total's
is
12.6.
yes, to make
Okay.
it positive. Mhm.
gotcha.
Any additional questions?
Find it, Jason?
Yep.
Any questions? Since you've already started discussion, since transportation is the next one of the discussion items, could you take that up?
Sure.
This is a brief update for the renewal for next year, so the 2017-18 school year transportation.
So in cooperation with the Libertyville School District 70, as well as the High School District 128, collectively, we contract with Lakeside Transportation. The last bid was 2011. We have gone to year-to-year renewals that reflect the Consumer Price Index with a floor of 2%. So last year's increase was 2.1%, which was CPI, and that is reflected per this rate sheet. We are meeting October 5th with Lakeside to discuss the renewal. Hopefully, it is just CPI again. We will bring back a recommendation at possibly an October board meeting.
This is the first time we are discussing this, so anybody, if anybody has any questions specifically to transportation, please forward them to Nick and Abe so that we can get them answered before the October recommendation. And this is only for Lakeside, right? Our first student and some other charter, those are not included in, those are yearly renewals and we do them later? Or what is the timeline for
So
those?
with first student, it's going to happen concurrently. It's a much smaller contract relative to Lakeside, but we're going to bring both recommendations to you together.
So that'll happen in the October meeting too?
Concurrently, yes.
Yeah. And do we have another one? I thought we had three of them. One is first student, Lakeside, and somebody else.
Just two that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I think last year we had to get one more just because first student wasn't able to provide some activity buses, if I'm correct, but I might be remembering wrong. And can I
Double
ask
check.
you to bring us back, when we talk about it again, some reports about problems reported with Lakeside? Because last year we had a lot prior to you being here, and I want to make sure that they've improved before we use them again. I know there was a lot of change in their office personnel, which was causing a lot of glitches.
Definitely going to look into that.
Thanks.
How often do we entertain bids from other companies?
This industry, it's regional. There's two factors. One is where's your hub located? So it's very regional as far as everyone's got their areas. Previous districts I've gone out to bid, and what I have found, it's typically you get one or two bids. You're lucky to get two, and it's typically the incumbent that already has the assets in place that gets the bid. typically when you go out to bid, you will see larger increases. It's typically not CPI.
And this also has to be the lowest bid amount by the state, right? Is that even involved for transportation? Because I know some of the items that we bid out for have to be the lowest dollar amount. Does that work for transportation too?
It does. It does.
Okay,
It follows the
but-
same guidelines.
The same guidelines of the state, so it has to be the lowest.
I'll bring that information at the next meeting as far as the guidelines and the process.
Okay. And First Student is just us, like we are in a cooperative with District 128 and 70 for the Lakeside, but not for First Student, right? First Student is just us, is that,
It's a much smaller piece. It is just us.
it's just us? No, I just wanted to know so we don't have that, okay.
Abe?
Yes.
For next time when we discuss this, can you find out how often Lakeside conducts background checks on their drivers? Do they do a background check when they get hired and then they don't do it again? Is it annually?
I can find out for you.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then I'd also like to know the average age of their bus fleet.
Okay.
Some
That's a
of
good
them are
question.
getting kind
Of their,
of
of
old
their,
looking.
of their what? Of their
Of
buses?
the fleet.
Oh, the fleet.
No, I'm just,
You went from drivers to fleet. I was. I just wanted to make sure I heard you right.
Just because they're no longer school bus yellow doesn't mean anything, I'm sure.
just curious.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Abe now? If anybody thinks of anything, please email him and Nick so that they can get to it. The next one is press packet. So it's press 95. We had some recommendations given to us by our attorneys. There are a couple that I wanted to, there's some that will go as presented by the press recommendations, but we'll go through them each one at a time. So the first one is policy number 2:220E. It is a closed meeting minutes. These will go as presented. The only changes have been to make sure these are the legal requirements, and some of them are what they would call as best practices. So both those will be adopted as presented by the ISB. We are not making any changes to that. The next one is policy packet. I'm going a bit out of order, just the easier ones first, and then we'll go with the ones which we have to talk about. The policy number 6:80. It is the teaching about controversial issues. They took out a statement to keep the policy broader, and we are going to go with as presented by or as recommended by the press packet. So that policy doesn't change. The next one is 6:180. This is the extended instructional programs. And and our extended instructional programs is also grades K through 6, or is K through 5? The extended instruction, so before and after school programs. It's K6, so okay. So this policy also, the only legal references are updated in it, so there's nothing much. So it will be adopted as presented. The next one is policy number 6:210. It is also a couple of words were changed and it was edited for clarity, so it'll be adopted as presented. The next one that we have is the policy number 2:260. This is a uniform grievance procedure. And this one was also told to us by some of the changes in this was mostly to include the Disabilities Act and to the website. And we did make changes to our web content in the summer. So according to our attorneys, we don't have to do anything more than what we have already done. So this policy will also, so we are in compliance with the WCAG, which is Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And so we don't have to do, so it'll be adopted as presented by the press packet. The next one, which is a bigger one, is the policy number 8:70. Sorry, trying to get to those. And this is accommodating individuals with disabilities. The attorneys have looked at it and they have said that they agree with the changes. We have a self-evaluation document that was updated. My question to you is, one of the recommendations is the superintendent acts as a Title II coordinator, which is the disabilities grant, and there is no policy or anything in place for that. The attorneys asked us as board members, do we want the attorneys to develop procedures to guide the superintendent to perform his role as a Title II coordinator? It is a question that we have. Because everything else is going to get adopted as presented. This is something extra. So the legal counsel agrees with all the changes that are recommended by press. Do we want to have our attorneys? I don't know how much it will cost, how much time it will take, or anything of that sort. But if we want to, this has nothing to do with the adoption right now, but we could look into it. So I wanted to know, is that something?
Let me
Because-
ask you a question.
Me-
So it says a superintendent or designee.
Yeah.
Is there a designee we would have that would be qualified to know this procedure without paying our attorneys probably thousands of dollars to draft up a procedure when perhaps disabilities and special education is not Nick's area of expertise?
Right now, he is the coordinator.
I mean, I think this is
Yeah.
then I think what they're not necessarily just talking about special education programming, but also facilities and accessibility. So some of that crosses over departments. So we have, people come in and look at our buildings every year, and then we make adjustments when necessary. We're doing some of that work right now. Some
Okay.
of it's about facilities, some of it's about programming, some of it's about websites. So it's sort of looking cross
Okay.
departments right now, and I think this is suggesting there be one point person for all of those. So at this point, we take care
I mean, I would for sure want to make sure we're in compliance, and if
We are in
if-
compliance.
If we
and-
need a protocol laid out for Nick or anybody in the future, then yeah, but something I would consider, but I guess,
Would that be something for Nick to recommend or not, whether he has enough? He's got the skill set, or is there somebody in the district that knows to be able to play that Title II coordinator, and then we don't have to have, no, in other words, they
Right.
know what they need to do.
Yeah.
If he thinks that they don't, then we can go to our attorneys and say, help us craft a procedure document. So I would tend to ask him for,
and that's
What
fine
he
too.
thinks he
I just want
needs
to make sure we
to
don't
do his job.
spend the attorney's time and our money doing stuff that doesn't need to be done.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, there's lots of different ways that we evaluate our compliance.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure that we have everything covered. I think Nick was sort of thinking if we wanted attorneys to look into this, would there be one comprehensive evaluation tool that the district could utilize to make sure we're in compliance in all areas of everything? Because right now, we do it, like I said, through different departments.
Mm-hmm.
different ways. He's covering everything. But obviously, this is coming from somewhere. There's some districts maybe struggling with finding ways to make sure this is
I'd push it back on Nick and say, do you need it or not?
Okay.
Okay,
That's my opinion.
that's fine.
The next one is the one which was, it's policy number 7:275. This is orders to forego life-sustaining treatment by students. And we haven't had anybody request that from us, but we have to have a policy in place. We have had in your board, Nick sent the letter from the attorneys that was sent to us. So in that, we have there are a few more edits that we want to do to this policy. So this is from attorney's recommendation. So if you see this policy goes by, there's 7 points to it. Like the child, when appropriate, the child's parents and guardians is like, this is about the multidisciplinary team. On the point number 8, the attorneys asked us that we add administrator along with personnel designated by the superintendent should also be part of that multidisciplinary team, as well as we added another point attorneys asked was on an item edit number 9, which was have a representative of outplaced school. Because if the student is outplaced, then we need to have a representative of the outplaced school in that multidisciplinary team that would go into action if this situation does arise. The other thing was the press asked us if we wanted to exercise any further. So those 2 edits are recommended by our attorney. So we will make additions to those 2 because they are come from our legal counsel. There was another 2 options. There's option number 1, which is the superintendent or designee will ensure minutes that are taken, summarize the decisions and guidelines made during the disciplinary meetings, or the option number 2, which the press packet recommends, is the superintendent or designee will monitor the effectiveness of guidelines established during the meetings. We don't have to adopt any of these options. The legal counsel didn't ask us to. I wanted to know if we wanted to add these. This would be above and beyond whatever our legal counsel has asked us to do. We are not recommended to take either or. We can just do it with the edits our legal counsel said. So does anybody want to have a discussion on any one of those options?
I don't love option 2 or find it super necessary, but option 1, I mean, I would think for something this important and potentially litigious, why wouldn't we take minutes of those meetings? I mean, talk about having to be, I would put that in writing in 1,000 places. Although, as far as number 8 goes, I have to say I'm a little confused, or perhaps I'm just not thinking far enough in the distance. If number 5, the school nurse, is already on that team, what other school personnel would be appropriate to make that decision?
I think if the student is with the teacher, but I think most of it would be, but since they have said it would be school's personnel and the administrator to make sure that the meetings and the signatures and everything are obtained, right? Because that is part
What
of
if they're
that
on a field trip or
multidisciplinary
something?
team.
They're on a field trip and the nurse isn't
Yeah,
there.
that's a good point.
So, I mean, those
This
came.
is just the team that convenes to go over the instructions.
Yeah.
So this list of
Right.
personnel here,
I think the only person who can do it is probably the nurse or a licensed personnel.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, the way this sounds, it doesn't sound like it really pertains to like a situation like a field trip. It sounds like if you were to have
This
this
is
meeting
having a
ahead of
meeting,
time,
yeah.
that this is,
Oh, before.
yeah, so
This
this is
is a plan you have in
beforehand,
place
getting everybody's
your
agreement
child.
as to what you're going to do if something happens.
right, then
So
I'm
this
like,
is- Correct, but this is, the teachers can change every year, so this is all the stakeholders getting together and agreeing on what the plan is, then that plan isn't set. So whether the student is with teacher A, B, or C, it doesn't matter. Whether they're on a school trip, it doesn't matter. There is a agreed upon plan ahead of time. So they just have to follow
Follow it,
whatever it
yeah,
is. So this is just talking about the makeup of that team to come up with that plan.
As far as I remember, most of the press packets we do is we talk to the legal counsel and we keep them broad. So if we don't have to add options, if we don't want to, that normally our legal counsel doesn't tell us to. We just go with the needs as well as whatever our legal counsel. So
I mean, I, of course, will go with the consensus of the board. I personally would be comfortable with minutes taken at those meetings, and I don't understand why you wouldn't.
that's what I was wondering is like, do we always take minutes? Yeah,
Most
we,
of the time.
So, I mean, this would just be, I guess, solidifying in a written policy that that's the protocol.
It makes sense.
Do we want to do that? Should we have it in writing, even though that is a best practice scenario done already? Or is the rest of the board thing? 1 minute. Do we want to have this in writing?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. So with
fine
consensus,
with
it's
that.
option 1. Huh?
Yep.
Okay.
Option 1.
With consensus, it's option 1. So that is it. The other policies which were reviewed by the press packet, but there was no change to them, were about 6 of them. They have, if there was any discussion that they were supposed to be, the policies are broad enough. I know we had talked about the homework, but that was going to be for us to discuss, but that was more, it wasn't a policy thing. I think the policy itself is pretty broad enough in our policy. What we want to do as practice, that would be a discussion for a different time. This is a policy making, so this is different
Right.
from what we would do, and we would do that separately.
Right.
So I guess that concludes our press packet.
Aw, darn.
One more?
Give me more.
Give me you more. Okay, next discussion item, EFMP. The Educational Facilities Master Plan Survey results. We conducted the survey starting in July-ish. We closed it on August 31st. We convinced people when they came for registration and through email blasts and our website to take. We had about 500 plus people responding to the survey, which was good. We have compiled the data. It will be presented next week. So we will go over the broad topics of what the presentation is. This is a question for the board. We had open-ended questions in there at the EFMP. We should address them to the community because these were questions raised by them. Some of them, and mostly relating to EFMP. In that community survey, there were some questions that do not relate to EFMP or high enrollment. They had to do with transportation and food. That is not the discussion to have right now. The EFMP related discussion, how do we want to address those questions? Couple of options was next meeting when we present our graphs with the other survey, we could also take the time to address those questions. We could have a separate town hall meeting to address those questions. We could put an FAQ on the website to address those questions, the ones that specifically relate to EFMP and the concerns that were raised by the EFMP. What does the rest of the board think, and what do they want to do to address those open-ended questions? Which is the way do you think you would address? This is not going to be back and forth discussion. This is going to be addressing those questions. The back and forth will come later if we want to do that. This is just to address the questions we got on the survey, only relating to EFMP and high enrollment.
I think that if it's not going to be a back and forth, that town hall isn't the best way to go. Probably maybe putting the answers on the website.
Fact.
Because I mean, I know I don't really want to stand in front of people and just spout stuff and have them wanting to come back and not do it. So it should be a setting where, there isn't room for that.
When you say address the questions, what do you mean? What are we addressing? What questions?
A lot of the comments had a lot of questions within them, but a lot of the comments just sort of either,
So
I think they
specifically
elicit.
answering or
Well, you
answering
can't sit
the
there and answer
questions.
700 comments.
yeah, so
You'd have to sort of categorize them, right? You'd have to go kind of, okay, well,
there's some general themes that
general themes, I think, and then,
General themes there was some themes of people were still confused by the enrollment numbers or the CASARDA reports as to why the Series C was chosen. Something that, they're still confused about that. They don't think that our schools are full, even though we've talked about it at every meeting. But
never mind.
well, that
facts.
doesn't mean they believe us.
Never mind. The
yeah,
data.
but now we are the only ones giving them, but that was the thing. The town hall was not going to be what I meant by town hall was, do we want to have a separate meeting
live-
where more people will come to attend? so that when we answer questions, they hear it with their, because here, if only 10 people come, then those are the only 10 people who watch their concerns being addressed, is the way. So this is an open discussion for us. How do we want to address that? If we want to address, because we have to address it at some point,
So.
the information that they have or they don't have according to them.
Right. So I think I've literally read every comment. So if you're watching, I assure you, I have spent hours and hours and hours, not all in one sitting, reading hundreds of comments.
Most of us have.
Yeah. I'm just, I can't speak for anybody else. Don't know whatever they did in their free time, but yeah. So I think what I can't personally appreciate about an FAQ is it pretty much narrows it down to 10 subjects or themes or whatever, which is okay if you only had 20 or 30 questions or comments to begin with. I don't think it really does justice to the volume of stuff that we had, sent to us.
But the
I
volume
sort
is
of-
in themes, isn't it? It's,
thought-
it's kind of in themes.
Some of it's in themes, but there's just little nuances here and there to each one that I think if you're going to end up writing a 3-paragraph answer, nobody's going to want to read through that, and nobody's going to, I think, I don't know, I shouldn't say nobody. I just think it's going to end up dismissing, I think, a significant portion of the comments. Town hall, I agree, whether you use that word or not. If we're not going to have a back and forth discussion, which I agree, I think that's only going to get us off on a million tangents. I don't know, I'm perhaps going, maybe we should have somebody record us live answering these things and put the link to that on YouTube or on the website or somewhere where everybody in the community can access it. And then I think that allows some clarification of some of the misinformation that was in the comments. It allows us to answer some of the questions that were in there. It allows us to at least acknowledge that we've heard people's concerns and heard their prioritization of this, that, or the other thing. I don't know. I'm all for, as much as I hate public speaking, I am all for doing something where somebody can hear your tone of voice, see the expression on your face, not where some tone is going to be read into something or not read into something, or they don't know who's writing it or who's saying it, or, I don't know. I think with as much of a lack of trust as a lot of this community seems to have right now in us, I think it's a chance to build trust by having at least some kind of face-to-face connection.
Jason?
So most of the comments were indeed just comments. There's a handful of questions. There's not hundreds of questions. Could we answer those questions and just put out a document? Here's a question, here's the answer, here's a question. They can read it as they want. I'm afraid that if we have a town hall to answer these questions, my guess, based on previous practice of town halls and lack of participation and attendance, is that the ones asking those questions will not go to those town halls, and will still not have the answer to the questions that they posed.
I would think that would be recorded and put on the website like we do all the other stuff.
And, okay, so the questions that we have seen are the same questions that we have answered multiple times through meetings, through town halls, through other forms of communication. So yet another town hall to answer it is providing them another avenue which they will still not get the answer because they choose, or for whatever reason, not get it. So if we have something said, hey, if you took the survey, you asked a lot of questions. Here's your questions, here are the answers. Go to it, read it. If you have follow-up, feel free to contact the superintendent, get more questions answered if you want to. It's just that the town hall part of it, we've done that. We've provided tons of information about enrollment, about a lot of these questions that are in there, we've answered in multiple ways. So is a town hall going to be yet another avenue where we answer it yet again and people still have misinformation out there? No, to
I
me,
mean,
it's
we
like-
can't help what misinformation is going
Exactly.
to float around
So-
after a certain point. I don't think I'm comfortable just saying, well, oftentimes we get bad attendance, so we just should quit trying. I think it's still
No, we will
an
address them.
opportunity.
Here are the questions, here are the answers to your questions. And it'll be available for everyone to see whenever they want to go find it. It'll be
We
readily
could address
available.
them next time in our meeting because we are going to go over the results. We are going to post the results.
You know, or we can do a hybrid version. We can say, here are the top 10 themes. We'll answer those here live. And then here's the verbatim answers for all of the questions posted online. So if you've got your answer through, you know, some of the themes, because some of them are the same, you get them answered. And if there's specific questions that are one-off, you can go look into them and say, okay, where are they? Where's the answer? And we'll have them. So we don't spend the whole time going over all of the questions. We answer the main themes, but then we do answer all of the questions so that we don't avoid what you were thinking about of dismissing some of them. We do address them, but in a different manner if they're just one-off. That's another option.
Because doing it back and forth is not going to work because there is no
No, I agree.
There is
I don't
no
wanna do
way
back and forth.
and it's not because of not doing it, but the practicality of it is if somebody asks a question, there's no way we are going to have enough data or
Right.
slides at the tip of our fingers to pull that up and answer it. And most of this is going to need data to be shown. You know, we can spew it, but I don't know if the number is 4,250 or 4,314. And I don't want to get it wrong to them when I'm here to answer the questions. And to get that data or having so much data as much as we have at the tip of your fingers at every time for every question that goes. So that back and forth, just for that logistic reason, is not going to work. Because again, me saying a number which is 4,250 versus then becomes actually the number is something more or less is again going to create that feeling that either I don't know my stuff or I'm trying to miscommunicate. So that's why that back and forth is done. Every single answer, but most of them, I think we can break it into themes. We can break it into certain aspects to address some of it live with data, with graphs, with charts that we will do. And some, if they are, we'll have to, because if they are anonymous, there's no way to answer all these questions. I mean,
Oh, no, you can't like personally obviously address.
you know, we do when
Anybody.
when they write us a letter or an email, it personally
Well,
goes
right.
back to each and every one of them. Every email gets answered. So this would be, you know, but I agree we can't, I don't know how much time we can spend on just answering every single concern too, because it's a lot of time.
I think I'm going to say this just to say it for the record because I get the feeling everybody's going to disagree with me. I do think even if it's not in one sitting or one meeting, I do think we have to attempt to address as much as possible. Unless something was completely out there, I think we had one or two comments that were literally unrelated to anything on the survey. And it was
No,
just,
that's true.
it was just me going, okay, if that's your grievance, you really need to write to the board, you know?
Yeah.
But I think even if we can't do it all in one sitting or one board meeting, I do think if somebody took the time to answer the survey and took the time to write a comment, we owe it to address that, acknowledge it, answer a question if it had a question. I do think we owe it. You know, I mean, I don't think we owe it to go, well, this didn't fit neatly in any of our 10 categories, so
No, but that's what Jason said, right? Like, I mean, we could do some of it in bulk, and some of it, if they are really not, because a lot of them are going to come, the answers are going to come from the same data.
yeah,
You know,
some,
it's
yeah,
a lot of the answers are going to come from the same data, it's the same numbers that
right.
led to the looking up the numbers. So, I mean, we can
Okay.
try addressing it the
I'm just
next
thinking-
time and see how it goes, and you want to take it from there?
I mean, if we
know.
don't have town hall back and forth, which I totally agree with, I really don't want the back and forth because I think it would cause, like I said, a lot of tangents. And then what would happen is we'd run out of time before we really got to address everything. But I do think that saying it live at a board meeting where somebody can click on the minutes, click on the video and see what was said and what was addressed and know like, hey, stay tuned for the next, you know, several months, once a month at a board meeting, we're going to be going through these survey results. You know, I don't know. If I were to, you know, this isn't like me answering a survey that Procter & Gamble sends me to see if I like my new Bounty. Like, I think if people took the time to answer this survey, they deserve a response.
Yeah, but if potentially we're using this data to make decisions that have to be made like sooner rather than later, possibly. So if we just do like little by little, I mean, they might not have.
It
the
was just an
answer
idea
before.
so we don't have a 4-hour meeting. That's all.
Well, that's what I was gonna say.
No,
I like Jason's idea of, maybe picking the 10 hot topics and then having everything else available. So we're not dismissing, but then, little by little, we can go through the list and get it up sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think we need to, I like the idea of just taking the specific questions for the EFMP and making that a separate thing, whether it's separate discussion time. But there are, were some questions that I think we owe it to the community to answer, whether we break that up into 2 board meetings or 3. I agree with Robin that we need to do our best to answer every question that was asked. I know that, there were some questions that had nothing to do with EFMP. They just used taking the survey as their opportunity to.
And
Share their
there were a
thoughts.
lot of comments in there that were just somebody's feelings.
Yeah.
And I don't think we can address those because there's just somebody's feelings that they didn't buy into it, they didn't believe it, they didn't really say.
Then we at
some-
least acknowledge that we've read those comments, we hear their
But we
concern,
have.
and that's it. I know,
I mean,
but
we have, but there are some things that can't be addressed too. I mean, I want the people who are watching this to realize that there are some comments and stuff in that cannot be addressed. I mean, there's no way you can begin to address that on some of those comments that were there.
Right. But we need to, there were some comments that had misinformation. So I definitely think we
yeah,
should
we need to
address
clarify.
those and, provide data to correct that.
Oh, and that's where Jason's point is, where you get a document on the website, you've got one version of the truth, which is part of the problem that we saw back in April. So many different stories going multiple directions. The truth just got completely skewed. So I think a document that anyone can pull up with like they keep coming up over and over again with an answer with data points can clarify that as well. But we do need to answer.
No, I agree with answering the questions. I just don't think we need to answer them live. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I do appreciate everybody's time. I mean, it's a big task to do it all live.
No.
I don't know. It's the best.
Let me
use
just
of
tell you
time.
something, okay? If you do an FAQ on the website, everybody's going to think Nick and his team generated that. And if you read the comments, people don't trust the board, okay? There were a handful of comments off, maybe 3 or 4 that I can think of off the top of my head that blamed it on somebody other than us. Like, this
No,
has
I
to
agree
come
that-
from us. This cannot be from, oh, well, Nick, go answer these questions.
No, this has to come from us, but that's the thing. Like, the question when they were saying that they don't trust the board, it's not a comment I can address or concern because what are we going to say? That we are showing you the data, we're showing you the stuff. There's nothing more we can do to say.
I'm not saying you can change their feelings, but you can say, we understand your concern. We are trying to brainstorm steps to build better rapport with the community, to build better communication. If you have ideas of what would make you feel heard or make you feel listened to, please email the board, please share them with us. I think it's really, I don't want to say that we can't address those. I think we can. I think I can't change somebody's feelings, but I think that it would be a real shame to just go, well, sorry you feel that way.
Again, address them in which way? So if there's a specific question, there are a number of specific questions, we can address them. We can give them the answer. But if there's a comment, how do we address it? Do we address it as a board? We need to have consensus. What is the board's position on that? It's not you addressing it, I'm addressing it,
course.
Wes addressing it. So
Of
how do
course, we would
then-
need to take time to kind of parcel these out by category. And then, I don't know, perhaps as board president, you can, appoint somebody to draft potential answers and get approval from the board. And then that's what we use or, something
So
like
if
that.
it's
I
not a
don't know.
question, what would we draft? Just a board policy statement, a
I just think there
position
needs to be
statement?
right. I think there needs to basically be a position statement that here's the steps we're taking to get all of our facts straight, get all of our communication in order, get the education piece in order, et cetera, because we've heard your concerns and we realize that this is where you thought the shortcomings were. And, you know, you also can acknowledge the other stuff. Thank you for the people that were supportive and thought that, you know, they'll continue to support us regardless because they want to see the best for the district. And we appreciate comments from both sides and they're both helpful in informing us going forward. And I just think there needs to be that statement. I think, I don't know about you, but when I have a problem, whether the person I'm, you know, airing my grievance to can fix it or not, it always feels better to be validated. And I think that that goes a long way towards building trust. But I'm going to shut up now because I'm running in circles.
What are we doing next meeting? We are going to present the data that was solid, that was data from the questions, the paragraphs, what was the concern, how many people voted, how many people didn't. That is the data that we have on graphs. That is the main questions. This is the question of open-ended. Do we at least, the first shot, we make an attempt of saying, you know, because like you said, we can't have a 6-hour-long meeting.
Right.
You know, the rest of us also, and there's other work that needs to get done. There's a lot of things on the agenda that need to get done. So do we take the 10 big themes of it and answer those first and see how that goes at the same time? Because we have to start moving on this. We have 2 weeks to get these answers up and ready to go. So we need to have a consensus of what are we going to do, because we need to start doing it. So
I think depending on how long the presentation of just the hardcore data results goes, I think would dictate whether we even start addressing the open-ended stuff all in one meeting next meeting. I mean, it could take 30 minutes just to present the data from the actual multiple choice questions.
So we're pushing it out to the meeting following it then?
I'm not in any specific rush to necessarily address every open-ended question. I think if and when we're ready to start going at this again, then for sure those have to be addressed before that. But I don't think anybody's sitting there going, I've got a September 30th deadline to have you address that issue. I just think, you know, sooner rather than later, but I don't want to rush it and put something into a meeting that's going to turn it into a 2 or 3 hour meeting. 2 or 3 hours is fine as long as you're covering your whole agenda, but I don't want to talk about that for just 2 or 3 hours. But that's up to you guys. I don't really care. I'm here.
You know, because we have to start discussing what are we going to do, what are our next steps too. So we can talk about the next steps till we address the questions, or it doesn't matter. We can start talking about the next steps after we present the data next week, because we can do that. We can talk about the next steps and tell the community that their answers are coming.
It seems like we need someone to do a deep dive on the comments. Either come up with themes or say, no, we have to address everyone. They're all unique. So that's one extreme. The other extreme is, okay, there's 3 big themes. This is it. That's all we need to address. But until someone, you know, either a volunteer or with Nick or you or say,
It has to be us. It has to be.
yeah, take a
It has
look
to be
at it
coupled
to
from the
say,
7 of us. I'll volunteer
say-
my time.
I will too.
So 2, if you can get together and say, okay, we're going to break these out, take this question, put it in this bucket, see how many buckets you have. That will then guide us how we go forward. Because if we have 25 different buckets, then okay, that kind of blows away our 10 themes that we can do in a meeting. But if we have, you know, half a dozen, maybe we can handle them all. There are a bunch of outliers, then we might have to come up with another solution. Until we know, it's going to be hard to say what the next step is. So I think the next step is to collate the information that we have in front of us.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
will then guide us going forward.
I don't feel comfortable moving forward without really, going, I read the questions, I read them over, but getting them in categories and, really seeing where the community is at on this is important before we move forward.
So then it has to be addressed sooner.
Well, that's what I was trying to say before, but, if you guys are going through stuff and either one of you starts to get burnt out a little bit, I can throw in some time too, and substitute.
I'm happy to as also. I'm happy to also.
Okay. I and Wes will set up something because it has to be two of us at a time, so.
Right.
We'll start at it and take a dive at it, because if that's the consensus that we want to address these before we start into looking at the next steps, then this has to be done sooner. Because we will run out of time. We need to make decisions faster than that. Okay, the next one is the 6-day enrollment update.
Okay, so last year on September 7th, we gave our 6-day enrollment report submitted to Lake County Regional Office, and we were at 4,257. On the 8th, we submitted this year's, and we are at 4,324. So we're up about 70 students from last year. We have some students, about 20 at Lincoln in special services, who are not yet 3, but will be coming. They're being assessed. And so if we add those in, obviously that adjusts the number. It's a check on our enrollment. It's not necessarily it's a one-day snapshot, so it doesn't necessarily take into account all the students. We have some students who come from John Powers and things like that. The interesting thing to note is that the kindergarten class this year is about 35 below our average, so it's about 415 at this point, which kind of means that we're getting more students, or leads one to believe that we're getting more students in 1st through 8th right now. So that is the enrollment update for right now.
Any more questions? Any questions for Lisa?
There's no way to ascertain who's sitting in private kindergarten and will be here in 1st grade, right?
We don't have any private schools within our district.
I didn't mean,
Do you mean in like
well, I mean,
Montessori
there's,
or,
right, there's
or
people
other
that go to
places
like
that?
Goddard for, or Bright Horizons for kindergarten that don't come here till 1st
I think we saw a big adjustment when we started offering full-day kindergarten.
Oh, so we
had
don't get as
an
much of that anymore.
increase in the kindergarten class when that happened.
Gotcha,
We don't see as many students come from private kindergarten anymore.
gotcha.
The next topic of discussion is the new development.
Yeah, I think this information was just presented on the Majestic Pines development to you in your packet, just to give an update on this as a potential development, and just to kind of keep it in the forefront that we have opportunities still to build within our district, and that, yes, we have enrollment issues. So just kind of keeping these things out there for you and as information. This is an Indian Creek development.
It's 10 houses, right? So 2 are built, 2 are under contract. This is separate from the ones that are already on our horizon, which is Cuneo, Melody,
Yes.
and Woodland Chase.
Yes.
Anybody know of anything else getting built? Just asking. You never know. The next item of discussion is kindergarten center update. And we have Mr. Lemke and Mr. Lam.
Greg is here, and
Greg,
then
sorry.
Carrie is also here from DLR
Yeah.
to provide an update.
And Wes is here from our core team.
Yes. And Lisa.
And Lisa.
Everybody went and lowered all the chairs just for a joke, I think.
Yeah,
Greg, you
somebody
can
did
come
that.
up if you'd like to. Do 3
So good evening, board. We're excited to be back. I wanted to introduce Carrie Van Sant to you all. She joined DLR Group recently and has been sort of put right into it as you think about the Sullivan Center. So you'll be seeing Carrie as we move forward, as well as myself. Everyone's sitting higher than me tonight, so this is Greg with LAMP. He's here to answer any questions about schedule or bidding that you might have. But it's been a busy few weeks. We have had a couple design team meetings. We've had some administrative meetings. We've met with the village. We've met with the civil engineer. We met with the teachers. So we have a a really exciting design to present on October 9th to you. I think it honors the legacy of innovation and flexibility that you all have put to us as we have brought this to fruition now. So we're excited about the consensus and the energy behind this plan. So I think that you will be as well. To bring you up to speed on just a few different items, Nick and I and Tom McGrath from LAMP met with the village to understand more about the specifics of their approval process for this endeavor. Since it is sort of an intergovernmental pursuit, the review process for the village is limited to the site work, the flat work, and not necessarily the building itself. We'll be going through the Regional Office of Education and their authority having jurisdiction under this building, so we will have a permit from them for the building itself. The other component of permitting will be through wetland mitigation. As you're all aware, there is a wetland on site in proximity to where we will be building the addition. Before we bring you up to speed on the wetland information, I wanted to share, and I don't know if Nick had previously presented it, so if he did, I apologize, but the soil borings are complete in that review. We did 6 borings in and around the area of the addition. Lots of good news in those borings with respect to the bearing capacity of the soil below. The groundwater table was 13 feet with some seasonal adjustment below finished grade as it sits today, which is good news for us as well. The only limitation that we have from the soil borings is that they were unable to penetrate the wetland boundary too deeply with the drilling rig, such that the borings that we have are in the wetland buffer and not deep within the wetland itself. And so that soil remains unqualified. However, given the consistency of the other 6 borings in and around the vicinity, there is some reasonable presumption that similar bearing capacity exists at the level below the wetlands. Now, there may be some additional topsoil that would need to be removed in the wetland area itself because of the ability for that area to hold water, but we won't know that just yet. So we have to remove about 12 inches up to areas maybe as deep as 2 feet of topsoil from where we are, but this is not completely unexpected and certainly can be accommodated with some allowance. The village process is likely a 3-month process with 1 public hearing from zoning, so that will take place in due course. The civil engineer is getting rolling with their work, and so now that we have consensus on the design moving forward, I anticipate that work to be coming quite quickly. Abe and Carrie and Tom, who's not here from LAMP tonight, had a conversation recently last week with the civil engineer, and I'll let Carrie kind of fill you in on some of the topics discussed because that is another area of permitting.
So we did discuss, and I know Lisa was on the call as well, with Gewalt Hamilton. The critical path is really going to be permitting through Lake County Stormwater Management Commission because of the impacts that the building footprint and site infrastructure will have on the wetlands. And currently, as it is right now, there are no wetland banks to potentially purchase credits from. Excuse me. So there is a wetland bank currently being constructed. Gewalt Hamilton is looking into when the availability of purchase of credits may be available, as well as the amount of credits that may be available. So the maximum amount of acreage that the district may be able to purchase from that wetland bank. So those all have impacts, and as soon as we hear back from Gewalt Hamilton, we can provide an update on that. But that really is the critical path as far as obtaining permits for the project.
So a quick refresher on wetland mitigation. There's 2 ways to do it. One, you can mitigate on your own site. In other words, if you have enough acreage, you can create another wetland and then build on top of the existing wetland. Now, we don't have that affordance given the site constraints that we have at the Sullivan Center. So the other choice is to purchase wetland credits. And you're essentially land swapping wetlands in another location by buying this credit. So you're saying through this land bank that we're going to take approximately an acre or however much we'll end up mitigating at the Sullivan Center property and then transferring that to a newly created wetland. So you're essentially creating a balance between the amount of wetlands available in Lake County or under the stormwater jurisdiction. Okay, so all of that said, we're looking at a bid window of April through May as our targeted window. Now, the wetland, if there is no land bank available, it is conceivable that that will delay the construction. That Lake County will not give us a permit to move earthwork or to start earthwork, such that we would delay the bids until such a time where there was land bank available for us to purchase wetlands.
Could
And
that
do you-
go, could that go indefinitely with no banks?
No, there is, as Carrie reported, there are banks being constructed. It's a question of when those will be available to
If
purchase.
it's a wet.
So we can't start construction till the bank is available.
That's our current understanding, but Gewald Hamilton is investigating.
Okay.
And what's the typical cost of one of these wetland credit purchases?
I don't have that dollar value in front of me, and I don't want to give you a wrong bit of information. So that has been budgeted for already as a part of the process. Now, obviously, the less amount of wetland we disturb, the less expensive the credits are. One of the things that the soil report has indicated to me in my recommendation to the design team was to pursue a two-story building construction instead of a single-story. The village of Vernon Hills is asking that we connect a loop road from the backside of the Sullivan Center to basically across from Middle South where that bus entrance used to be. It's not bus anymore, but
Right.
where the north entrance is. And so we will be, in addition to the building footprint, we will be disturbing wetland for that roadway connection. So that's something that led me to make the recommendation to make the building at least as compact as we can make it, as close to the existing Sullivan Center, while still affording the future flexibility of some additional construction.
There was a talk about the exit through the back itself. Did the village say anything about that? And does that affect any of the wetlands or anything else? The construction, like constraints or anything about that?
There has been discussion about obtaining a pathway to the east. I know that the village is very interested in doing that to mitigate traffic onto Aspen. And so I believe that there have been discussions with the property owner to that end.
No, but how would that affect our design of the building and the wetlands and stuff? That's what I was asking. Like,
Well,
once that gets sorted out, and if it gets sorted out.
yeah, as far as the wetlands go, it won't have a substantial impact on the wetlands themselves. The loop road to Aspen Drive will be the largest impact.
Okay.
There'll likely be a few visitor parking spaces and as well as some handicap stalls adjacent to the new main entrance of the addition. And the roadway will likely create the additional impervious area.
But if we could exit out the east, would we still need that loop road?
The
Yes.
village is right now requesting both.
Oh, nice. But you said the two-story construction ends up typically being more expensive, right?
Actually, and I'm doing all the talking. Do you want to do?
Feel free, go ahead.
Actually, we're hoping that it's going to be less expensive
Oh,
to do the two-story construction.
okay.
Because of the cost of banking the wetlands into it. Because if we do the
That
one
is certainly
story.
part of it, right? The single-story plan did take up 95% of the existing wetland footprint. And so the two-story footprint allows us to keep it more compact. And so that's obviously a benefit. The additional foundation work and slab on grade work that would be required for a single-story building, if you think about this building, right? If you go up, there's less building touching the ground plane, so that's less dirt you have to move if you go up. So that's the theory, that we're hoping to move less earth around and put less concrete down, if you will, in order to maximize dollars.
But now we have to build a stairwell and
Elevator.
an elevator and.
Correct. And that's been factored in.
Okay.
Since the cost of the wetland credits is unknown, how did you calculate that item for the budget?
It's not unknown, it's just unknown to me right now. I don't recall the exact number.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It is a budgeted and down to the dollar known value per acre.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it. And what is the village's reason for requesting that there's a entrance exit off of Aspen Drive?
That'd be a great question for the village. We've
Okay,
had,
I don't know. I mean,
yeah, we've had a few meetings on the topic, and I know that fire access is obviously something that they're concerned about, and having multiple means of egress for a fire truck or ingress for a fire truck. But I'm not quite sure of the rationale behind the alignment of the intersection of the existing drop off to the north side of Middle South and this drive. I mean, it would be beneficial, in my opinion, to connect through the library parking lot, through the existing ingress and egress out of that parcel. But of course, that adds other complexities with the library. So, but that's a great question for the village.
Is there any plans to have more traffic control then, once they make that a cross street instead of a T?
To be determined. Your civil engineer will make that recommendation, and then
That's the
ultimately
village civil engineer or ours?
yours. And then the village will ultimately have to approve that recommendation one way or the other.
So if you're thinking that we go out for this bid process was now in April, right? Initially, when we started, we wanted to go out for bid in February because those were, if I'm not mistaken, I heard you get the best bid or best variety, I don't know, dollar amount or quality of bids at that time. Now the date has been moved to April plus. Is that what am I hearing that correct?
We're targeting the month of April.
Okay, but it's April plus, depending on when the banks
Well,
come and.
Yeah, that's correct. If that happens, that's correct.
So what is the, in your experience and expertise, how would that affect our bids as compared to February?
I'm going to have Greg answer that question, and then I'll come back to the wetland question about the schedule.
In regards to the bidding, if you bid it out in the April-May timeframe, you're going to get good competitive bids because what it is, you run into summer work, like summer school work, is mostly remodel work that everybody's trying to get done, which gets to be a real nightmare. So during your summertime right now, you're bidding out doing the concrete foundation work and excavation, which is not a lot of your summer remodel busy work. So those guys are going to give you good numbers because they don't have that work out there. Now, as the timing goes on, your bid process looks good with the schedule because come September is when you start doing your interior finish work, start doing your metal stud work, your electrical work. All that summer school work is done. So these guys bidding it now, they see, hey, that's a nice filler to start in October, November. So they're going to want to be a competitive number. So I think by doing it this time, your bids, you're going to get good competitive bids by doing it that time, just the way the schedule works out. And we always provide a schedule in the bidding process so that everybody knows when they're going to be expected to be there and they can fill in their timelines and you get the competitive bidding that way. So like come in when you're finishing up during the winter months, you're going to be doing a lot of your interior finishes, which there's not a lot of interior work going on in the winter, and these guys like that winter work. So when you can do your interior finishes during the winter, that's a big plus, the remodel stuff. So I think you're going to get good competitive bids if we do it in April, at that time frame.
And so now considering how the wetlands, the situation with wetlands and also the fact that our design just got finalized and stuff, but forgetting even with the condition with the wetlands, if we wanted to go out in February, can we? But we can't, right? Because we are still working on trying to find this bank for wetlands and we don't know when it'll come. So we can't go out to bid till that happens anyway. Right
That's
now.
my understanding, yes.
So it doesn't matter. Even if we finish our drawings or does every other phase, we can't. So April is a more reachable target right now.
There isn't a reason you couldn't bid. You could go out to bid, but, and I'll jump in on Greg's turf a little bit, but the bidders won't be able to hold their bids in perpetuity because labor rates change throughout the construction season. and unknowns become more prevalent, such that winter conditions is a big unknown. And if you were going to hold your numbers for too long, the contractors say, wait a second, we don't know what's going to happen, so I'll give you time and material, and it becomes this big question mark. So it's not our recommendation to bid too far in advance of obtaining permits for those reasons. So we hope to have the answer back from Gewalt Hamilton in short order as to the timetable for the wetland banks to be constructed and when they would be available for purchase of credit. And that will be our new critical path. Now, obviously, the other approval process through the village and things like that will go through due course. Takes the time that it takes, fortunately or unfortunately, as well as, your own approval process of the various phases. I would recommend that we consider a consolidated design approval and not have previously we'd spoken about an approval or review at the end of schematic design and approval or review at the end of design development. As we know, those falling under the regular cadence of a board schedule might take a couple of meetings and those kinds of things. Quite simply, we want to avoid additional durations in the schedule that we can. And in my opinion, that'd be advantageous to look at a single approval of design from the board rather than multiple approvals of design from the board. And of course, preserving the approval for construction documents and to bid, but consolidate the two design reviews into a single design review. We'll also have to procure approval from the Park District, from their board as well. And so we're attempting to figure out what that schedule looks like. I've gotten preliminary information from them on their desires for aesthetics and things like that. So we're on good footing there. But nevertheless, I'm not quite certain how many approvals they'll require either.
Any more questions for Jason or Greg? If anybody thinks of any questions, send them to Nick and he can get the answers from Jason for you.
If I could, just before we end the discussion too, I just wanted to kind of publicly acknowledge the teachers who are on the committee. As you know, this is the first week and a half of school. They were working through the summer and in the last couple of weeks while they were getting their classrooms up and running with the committee, with Dr. Martin, having discussions with the architects, Jerry Silver from Elementary South, Shanna Howell from Aspen, Raquel Almora from Elementary North, and Mimi Batson from Townline. So they've done a lot of work. They've had a lot of discussion. They've done a lot of visioning. And this team is really trying to build something unique and great for our students. So I can't overemphasize enough how much work has gone into this and planning. And obviously there's a lot of things to consider. But really the bottom line is that this team is trying to design a really amazing facility for our kindergartners. And I just want to make sure we end on that note because I know timing is going to be critical here. But I think we're bringing a really great design forward.
Yeah, it's really
progressive, really progressive design that's going to be wonderful for our students. And I just wanted to make sure we thank them publicly for all the work they've done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
you.
for coming.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Thank you, Greg. Now we'll see you more often. That's the end of the committee of the whole, started business meeting. The first item is the consent agenda. I'm going to pull one of the items. It's 911-23B. The consent agenda will be approved without 23B as a item or topic. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda items as amended. I mean, if you remove that item, it's not really,
Yeah. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items except 911-23B.
okay, I second that. Since you just made it.
Okay. Motion by, any discussion? Oh. Motion by Sonali, seconded by Robin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 6 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent. The next action item is the approval of the 2017-2018 final budget. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the budget of Hawthorn School District 73, County of Lake, State of Illinois for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2017 and ending June 30th, 2018. Whereas the Board of Education of Hawthorn School District 73, County of Lake, State of Illinois, caused to be prepared in tentative form a budget, and the Secretary of this Board has made the same conveniently available to public inspection for at least 30 days prior to final action thereon. And whereas a public hearing was held as to such budget on the 14th day of August 2017, notice of said hearing was given at least 30 days prior thereto as required by law, and all other legal requirements have been complied with. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of said district as follows. Section 1, that the fiscal year of this school district be and the same hereby is fixed and declared to be beginning July 1st, 2017 and ending June 30th, 2018. Section 2, that the following budget containing an estimate of amounts available in each fund separately and expenditures from each be and the same is hereby adopted as the budget of this school district for said fiscal year.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion, comments? Motion by Robin, seconded by Matt. Could I have a roll call vote, please?
Jason Tron,
Aye.
Julie Simpson,
Aye.
Robin Cleek,
Aye.
Wes Pullen, aye. Matt Jacobs,
Aye.
Sonali Patel.
Aye. Motion passes 6 ayes, 0 nays. The next action item is approval of the 2018-2019 budget calendar. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education accept the following budget calendar for the preparation of the 2017-2018 budget, and that the Board of Education designates Mr. Nick Brown or his designee as the person responsible for preparing the tentative budget for July 1, 2018 to June 30, 2019.
Second.
Motion by Wes, seconded by Julie. Any comments? Could I have a roll call vote? Calendar, let's go for it.
Sonali Patel,
Aye.
Matt Jacobs,
Aye.
Wes Pullen, aye. Robin Cleek,
Aye.
Julie Simpson,
Aye.
Jason Tron.
Aye.
Motion passes 6 ayes, 0 nays. Superintendent's report. Lisa.
Thank you. So wanted to highlight Lexi Schulman, a 7th grader at Middle School North who qualified for the IESA State Golf Competition, which is this Saturday at Kellogg Golf Club in Peoria. If anyone wants to go to Peoria to cheer on Lexi, please call Robert Collins. I am sure he will be there. And congratulations, Lexi. On Friday, September 8th, Middle School South, Middle School North, and the Vernon Hills High School pep bands combined for an evening of fun, friendship, and music. The evening started with a gathering for a wonderful dinner provided by the VHHS band parents. After getting the band members set up with music and rehearsing for 20 minutes, it was off to the stadium for an exciting evening together, cheering on the VHHS football team. The combined bands performed on the track for a packed crowd. Following the performance, the band parents stepped up again and provided hot chocolate for everyone before heading home. Thank you to everyone who was able to participate and for administrative and parental support at all the schools. It was very, very cool. Obviously, today is September 11th, a day of remembrance for those who lost their lives, those who gave their lives for our country. Most of our schools had red, white, and blue days today. Personally, I was at Elementary South. Mrs. Sordini had brought in, they're doing a unit on heroes, so it's very appropriate for this time of year. She had brought in a friend of hers who is a pilot to answer questions. The kids had a lot of questions about what went on that day, and he was there in the office checking in, ready in uniform. So very excited to go down to the classroom. September 13th, Middle North Back to School Curriculum Night, parents only at 6 p.m. Middle South is on September 14th at 6 also. There's a bingo night at Elementary South on the 15th, 6 to 8 p.m. Don't miss it. On the 19th, we have a bilingual ELL parent education event. The theme is parents and teachers working together. The BPAC meeting is beforehand at 6:15, and then the meeting is at 7 p.m. And the location for that one is at Town Lane? Elementary North, thank you. And then September 21st, Rosh Hashanah, there is no school for all students.
President's report. An item which I forgot to mention in Press 95, we had to have a new complaint manager because Brad is no longer with us, and that is Art. For other, Lynn is one, and then Art.
Lucky you. Congratulations.
And Art is the next complaint manager. So I just wanted to tell because I forgot to do it at that time. So that had to do with it. A couple of things I wanted to mention. First thing, Art had sent us a memo regarding the dual language expansion for staffing. It is a coming up item. If you have any questions, please send them to Nick and Art. Make sure. Another thing to remind you is the new HEA contract is coming up. You all were provided a copy of the old one. And if you have any questions regarding the old contract or any other questions or comments that you have, please send the questions to Nick soon enough. One other things, I stepped in to attend a meeting for in Matt's place for CDOL. It was a budget approval meeting, and I'm glad to say it is a required quorum, and we were there. So some people were not, but we
Thank
were
you
there.
for going.
Thank
I
you.
said thank you for going.
So I wanted to give you a few updates from CDOL that I heard at that meeting. CDOL used to be a 35-member district. Now it's 31, so they've lost. They have 658 staff members and 1,068 students. It was their budget approval. Their fund balance is 15.5 million, and their revenues are 64.7 million. Their expenses have gone up, even though they have lost students, but that is because the students that they have gained is in the LASSO 3 students, which have more needs, and so they need almost 1-to-1 aid. So that's why their budgets and expenses have gone up. Their superintendent, Dr. Moline, is retiring, and they have a new search team, consultants for the new superintendent. Nick, the Lake County superintendents already met, and with the district member superintendents. And Nick has already, in consultation with Renee, already given what they want to look for in a superintendent. There's a forum for the board members, which is on September 13, which Matt said he would attend. So he could take some feedback if there's anything we would like Matt to specifically address at that point. The final approval it is a required quorum. Again, it's in January 25th. That's when the new superintendent will be approved. So that is one. That is the update I have on CEDAW. October 3rd is Lincoln's open house. If you are interested in attending it, please email Nick and me so somebody can step up to do that. We all attended curriculum night. All of us had signed up. The two are left, which is the Middle North and the Middle South, which are 13th and 14th, as Lisa mentioned. Is there anything anybody would like to share about the curriculum night experience? Anything that happened there? Nothing? Nobody talked to you?
Well,
There is an ice cream social at Town Line. I think it's on the 22nd.
Yes.
It's a fun time to go. I have been there a couple of times serving ice cream. It's fun to tell the kids that they already had taken an ice cream and so they can't come for another one. But it's fun event to go to. If anybody is interested in going, let Dr. Kiefer know and please go. You're more than welcome to go. There are adult English classes at Town Line, which are offered by the Mundelein High School. So anybody watching who might want to take advantage of this opportunity or know somebody who would like to, please look on our website. There's more information there. The Countryside Fire Department is looking for a grant, and it is based on the number of votes they can get. So please log on and give them our vote. They're very nice to us. All the Lake County superintendents and Lake County schools got together and are raising funds for funds or donations for Hurricane Harvey. It is going to benefit the Houston Indicated District, which is 248 schools in the Houston area, out of which, I think there's more information available. The resources they want, the list of things that they want is given. So please only send those things because those are the list that was sent to us by the Houston Educational Department. They're collecting this, I think, from the 19th to the 25th. I could be wrong, so just check the website. But please, if you would like to send them, and then all the Lake County schools will send the trucks together so that there's only one truck going down there. I wanted to congratulate Spandan Goyal. He is a Middle South student for winning a gold medal at the International Math League Summer Tournament held in New Jersey.
Wow.
Wow.
And that's it. Any future discussions? Homework was one of them. Does anybody have anything else that they would like to put on the agenda for discussion in the future?
I do.
Yes.
I don't know at what point it would be good timing, sometime before too much time passes, but now that the Chromebooks have been up and running for a little bit, I would like sort of to be educated because, a thought occurred to me about data mining and what's going on with these kids' Chromebooks and the websites they're hitting on and what information is being pulled. And are we protecting our students' privacy? And do our parents have the option in or out of certain privacy notices? So I kind of wanted to see, I'm really unclear as to what the district is currently doing on that. So I'm hoping either Dimitri or I don't know who the right person is could give us some kind of update as to what we are doing with all of the
Traffic?
access that the websites are getting
Okay.
from these kids that are on our Chromebooks.
So update on the traffic where the kids are going?
I'm not interested in where they're going. I'm interested in what happens to the data they enter and who's taking that and then what are they doing with it. Because there's a lot of data mining out there, and if they're hitting on, if they do a Google search for something,
Yeah.
and then suddenly their inbox is being spammed with something for a semi-related topic, then their privacy isn't being protected. I want to
the
know.
Fidget spinners.
Right. Like, I want to know, what are we doing right now to protect their privacy? Are we compliant with current, I'm assuming there's some kind of current legislation or whatever, laws out there that have to do with this type of access through educational devices and
Sure.
technology.
Okay.
So, like my son was trying to change the background of his Chromebook, for instance. And every time he tried to change it, despite it being one of the options that the computer gives, it kept getting wiped back to the original one. So I'm like, well, perhaps you're looking on a copyrighted image. Like, are we protecting ourselves by not allowing kids to download copyrighted images? Maybe we are, and maybe that's why it kept getting wiped. Maybe he's just not saving it properly. I have no idea. But I'm just saying, like, now that these are up and running, I want to make sure we're being responsible for protecting things that, even like the data that's collected off the heart monitors. Where does that go? Who gets access to that?
Any other topics for future discussion? Jason? Julie? That's it then. Did I have a motion to dismiss?
Motion to adjourn.
I second.
Motion by, any discussion, comments?